Hello, MDF. And I really hope today is lovely for you. You were kind enough to say some really nice things about my last reading, and I think that is attributable to Keneally's words more than anything. So, if you don't mind, I'll just continue with those. They are rather good. I hope I'll get a little bit further on with them now. Chapter 1. Oh no, sorry. I'm going to have to start again because we have started Chapter 1. I'm sorry, I am forgetting everything at the moment. We'd already met Tim Shea, who sounds like an extremely interesting person, and his wife Kitty. And the person with the missing head. Who was the person with the missing head ever named? No, she wasn't. She was the person on whom Mrs. Mulrooney had performed an illegal abortion and killed her in the process. So, I beg your pardon, right. Yes, and we'd just, there'd been a sort of description of Tim as a potential miserableist, and Kitty as generally a chirpy person. I think we'd finished with the words melancholy didn't claim her. Lucky woman. Right. Okay, so these are Keneally's words from now on. I won't say anything else. He'd begun fretting in his sleep about the idea Constable Hannay would ride up soon with horrible remains in a bottle of ether or alcohol. And he knew his turn to countenance her was coming. But it could not happen today, when Hannay and his wife were on Terrara, with perhaps half the population. Excluding the ill like him, the dusky brethren of the native reservations at Burnt Bridge and Green Hill, and those shingle cutters who could not afford the 1 and 6pence for an adult, or the 9pence for a child. He intended to take a folding stool onto his back paddock. This was in fact part of the high river bank. One section of his property with a shed for his delivery dray, the other a fenced pasture for his turbulent horse, Petey. He intended to sit in the yard under the pepper tree shade, hear the river close by, read the Argus and the Chronicle, and take an idle interest in what Bryants and Savages were selling jam and soap for, and try to work up an opinion on whether the Chronicle was more democratic than the Argus, or vice versa. Anyhow, somehow, consideration of these questions in a camp chair in the shade. He'd take a flask of rum. His aloneness in a town emptied of all the grander people. Very welcome. He'd take a blanket with him too, to lie on, in case the stupor of the day got the better of him. He sat down on the camp stool beside his residence and store, T. General Store, situated in a corner where Belgrave Street ran up to the river and then turned right at an angle to become the chief waterfront street, named after an earlier landholder called Smith. By looking down the lane beside his store and residence, he could take in the bend in the road, parts of bush fashionable Smith, a section of nearly as fashionable Belgrave. Some black people wandered past his line of sight. Dangadi was the name of the main tribe here. All barefooted, these visitors go to town. The men's in bits of suits, one coat bright yellow. Where were they going on such a day, with all the shops closed? Talkative ghosts in a town so solidly defined that most of its population could bugger off on a steamer and return to find everything still in place. No dahlias ripped out by the roots, no windows broken. The river itself now, another remaining inhabitant. It reached around a bend amongst willows people had planted here in the last half-century. Low, yet still 3 times wider than old world rivers, rich and deeply green. Take a glimpse, too, at the mountains in the west, richly blue like the underside of a mallard's wing. So that was it. He'd appreciated his bright surroundings, the unembarrassed light and the blue hills, and the deep navigable Mackay River olive with mud, and the quiescent punt at Central Wharf, and the huge pylons sunk in the water for a coming bridge between Central and East. And now he could take a mouthful of the rum. Ah, the delicious too-muchness at the back of the throat, the shudder that outshuddered fever, and then pick up the Argos. For, although he respected the Chronicle, the Argus was very generous with its serial by A. Druitt, the Dickens of the end-of-century period. The Honourable Delia Hobholm was the spirited girl who had made three previous appearances in the serial in the Argus throughout January. She came from somewhere in the west country of England, since A. Druitt made a meal out of what the peasants and servants said to her. "Oh, Miss Delia, there bain't been no baking powder for got the pantry and freshening with." A. Druitt's Miss Hobholm lived in Hobholm Hall with her mother and father, and every day she rode out amongst the villagers and tenant farmers who called down blessings on her father's head. Silly buggers. The father never seemed to turf any tenants off their land. That's how you knew this was fiction. For the Albrights at home, landowners of Newmarket in Dunhallow, North Cork, took every chance to evict people for their own good and recommend them to emigrate to Massachusetts or Australia. But no one ever mentioned emigration from the Hobholm estate. Too busy being grateful to bloody Squire Hobholm. So the world was fine if you had a good squire, and foul if you had a bad one. What about having none at all? This tale, however, was suitable old-world pap to serve up in a place like Kempsey, New South Wales. And I know that wasn't very long, but I'm reading it very, very badly. So I'm going to stop because I'm not doing it properly. I know Keneally's got a reputation as a bit of a troublemaker. I don't remember the book being that political in the past. Not that I'm averse to it, but in fact it's interesting to hear his views on those important things. Anyway, oh yes, I don't know if you had the chance to look at Jessica White's blog. I'm really a big fan of hers. Because I can't find anything at the moment due to the upheaval here, one of the things I can't find is my copy of A Curious Intimacy, which I really do want to read some of to you. So I have just ordered on Amazon the one copy I could find, which was actually being sold on behalf of a company called the Australia Book Company. So I hope that it will soon be winging its way around the world to me here, and I'll read that with pleasure at some point for you, some of it anyway. I don't know, perhaps I'm trying to read too much at the moment. My head started to spin a bit. I think I'm going to stop and maybe try to sleep soon. Hope you're alright. Bye bye.